Welcome to the Art of Class. I'm Karen McIver. Well, we have reached the end of this first sequence of talks on music for dance class. And in this final video for this particular series, we will be looking at breadth and support. Everything we've been exploring in these principles is held together using precision as the mothership. And before we talk support and breadth, there are a few ideas to unpack regarding precision. We may consider that precision is our work at the keyboard, and that means technical mastery. Of course it does. But it also means a way of thinking clearly out our ideas. If we have a roadmap of ideas we can pull together in class literally at our fingertips, then our musical decisions are clear and precise. It's a bit like having the main trunk road or motorways in place, and the side roads are lovely deviations that we make whilst on our improvisation journey. So let's move into these final principles of breadth and support. It's interesting to note that of all the 6 principles, these 2 descriptors pertain strongly to singing as well as dancing. And so perhaps breadth and breath are in some way related. There is really interesting published research that looks at our cycle of breath in relation to musical organisation of events. And yes, it truly is breathtaking. If you're interested and want to know more, have a look at the website I've posted below. It's called The Relationship Between Musical Characteristics and Breathing Pattern at the Piano. And so if we are relating breath to our performance, we can pass that natural feel to the dancers in the room. And of course, we talked before about dancers' counts related to the cycle of breath, and the musicians' counts much more linked to counting with numbers and scoring. And that is expressed through breadth of playing. What I mean by that is the full orchestral sound of the piano at its best. The tonal colours we can create, and the use of the keyboard in all its extremities of dynamics and vibration. Let's look at the orchestra for a moment. Have we ever thought about how we are taught piano from middle C outwards? Hold on to that idea for a moment until we explore the orchestra as a living musical creature. Middle C is one of the weakest notes of all the orchestral instruments, and so if we are to think orchestrally, we must think big and wide and stay away from that safe symmetrical point at the keyboard. I often explore the darker and lighter shades of the piano to add to my palette of sound. Here's an idea I use often to create a rich tone, playing just below the midpoint of the keyboard to produce a dark, chocolatey sound. Of course, I'm using the note middle C a lot in this improvisation, but it sits on the outer edges of the melody rather than as the centre point as I move my hands lower onto the piano. What about the ethereal, chilled north pole of the keyboard to create stillness? It's using a different breadth of sound on the piano. Experiment at the extremes of the piano and think about its possibilities. What about playing melody in the left hand and turning the right hand into the accompaniment? So I'm going to link this big orchestral sound with support, And yes, I'm going to back to singing for a second. It's the diaphragm that gives buoyancy to the voice, and that's called support. As a pianist, I can give buoyancy to the dancer's movement almost from underneath by using various musical textures. Support varies from lift because of its feeling of sustenance. Lift, on the other hand, has a sense of rebound. Support can be fulfilled in two different ways. First, by creating that breadth of sound I'm playing. One such device would be to give a repeating pulse. For me, this Mozart is perfect, where the definition of the movement exactly matches the extension of the leg in développé. Again, when we heard the aquarium earlier, it gives a shimmering sense of support, not heavy and grounded, but definitely wholesome enough for the dancer to work with and feel safe and supported despite that lightness of sound. A second pathway to provide support comes in a surprising phenomenon in the construction of melody. Let's consider an exercise that may be set for a dancer in class, perhaps en croix, where the movement works symmetrically on all points of the compass. Of course, you would not expect the movement to finish earlier than the 8th bar. But this is exactly what happens in the melodic structure of so much music. Have a listen. The melody in nearly all waltzes finishes on bar 7 of an 8-bar phrase, leaving that final bar with only a flimsy accompaniment to complete the cycle. What if we completed the full 8th bar melody, and so we support the dancer and commit to the end of the phrase? And so to my final challenge in this series. It will provide you with a beautiful palette of breadth and support on the keyboard that works for the dancer. What if I held a drone bass in my left hand whilst my right hand explores all of the chromatic chords? Here I chose D flat and I'm playing through all the chromatic chords. By crafting these chords into a melodic structure, we reveal a trick most commonly exploited by Rachmaninoff, and that's not all bad.